Good evening. Welcome, everybody. So excited to have you join me. I'm Dr. Lisa Toppin, and we are talking about blazing your path. My guest, my dear friend, amazing woman, Yanira Castro. Welcome.
Hi, Lisa.
I'm so excited to host you this evening and to have this conversation. Now, this is my first live conversation, but I'm so glad it's you because that you and I have been sort of on this journey, or I'm going to say I had the opportunity to witness the birth of your journey, this part of your journey, as we work together. So I'm excited to share you and all of your insights with the audience. So just for the sake of intro, Janita and I worked together at LPL Financial, where she was a associate vice president of communications. And she then decided to take her side hustle and launch a communications company. And she's been doing that for the past 3.5 years. And even during a pandemic, has found a way to still not only prosper, but grow. So I'm excited to have you join. Let's maybe just start with you sharing a little bit about your background. So how did you become Yanira Castro, the entrepreneur of excellence that you are? Where did it all begin, and how did we get to this moment?
Oh, thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you and your first live guest, because we have been on these journeys together, which has been really fun to be part of and witness. So by way of background, I mean, I'm a Bronx-born Puerto Rican. I was raised in Westchester County in a small 1 square mile town, just 17 miles from the Bronx. And I went from being born in like one of the poorest counties in the country, to being raised in one of the richest counties in the country, just 17 miles apart. So you talk about, diversity of New York, and it can be really stark at times. I grew up in a mixed town. My public high school in Elmford, New York was pretty much half Black, half white. There are a few Asian and Latino families sprinkled in, which we were, I think, the first Puerto Rican family in that town. I graduated in a class of 35 students, very, very small school. And it was a pretty idyllic upbringing. Okay. There were not a lot of issues involving race, racism within the school. I can look back and see division within the community as far as where people lived, but there was no kind of issues that came up, as we were growing up. Mm-hmm. And so, I went to school, and then I cut my teeth working at a high-tech public relations agency in New York City in 1999. I was just 21 years old, and the founder she took me under her wing. She took me all around the world and creating media strategies for high-tech companies. I had never been exposed to things like sushi and grappa and, time zone differences, in Europe. And so that was a really pivotal moment for me, and have somebody who just believed in me when I really knew nothing about the industry, public relations, or about high-tech industries. We were working on things like arrayed waveguide gratings and the chips that go in cell phones, and this was back in the late 90s. And I spent the majority of my career in marketing roles at Chipotle and California Pizza Kitchen. I lived in New York, New Jersey before we settled here in Charlotte about 13 years ago.
There you go. And so, and that's where I appreciate where the story picks up, because of course you and I came together at LPL, and during your time there, you were acknowledged by the Charlotte Business Journal as 40 under 40. So this is we've got a rich history here. But let's keep going. How did you choose communications?
What's interesting is I wanted to be a psychologist, right? I love talking to people and listening to people, and I think part of my personality is to help people figure out what's going on. So that's what I went to school for. I went to Ithaca College as a psychology major, and also during that time, I was coming to an understanding of my own racial identity. And I credit a lot of this also to my sister, Rosa Clemente, who really taught me about what it really means to be a Black Puerto Rican, to be racially Black and ethnically Puerto Rican, and where those differences come in. I was part of the African Latino Society, where you saw some pictures from, and I was tagged to be the president of that organization. It was time for nominations, and that was supposed to be what I did. I made a deliberate choice to take on the public relations position because I love talking to people and sharing information about, events we were doing, what was going on, how we needed to come together as a community, and how to promote the event. So I fell in love with communications during that time.
And so that's an interesting point. And on Blazing Your Path, we're always talking about sort of how people found their careers and insights around them, because I'm hoping that women in particular, as they listen to your story and other stories, they find threads that help them discover their own path so they can blaze their own trails. So as it sounds like, I'm going to put it in these words, it sounds like communications kind of found you. You weren't looking for it, but because you stepped into a leadership role, you kind of discovered there was a love and a passion there, something that you thought you could actually do for a career. So you got rid of the psychology and went toward communications.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And I also think that psychology, it plays a huge role in communications as well. So those things that you learn and those studies that you do, I bring those with me because, trying to reach people on an emotional level, to make an intimate connection, whether it's in person or through the screen, requires some knowledge about the human psyche and the human spirit and how you connect with people. So all those things, you can bring them all along with you for sure in comms work.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting, just as we're living through pandemic, the understanding of the human psyche just plays out even more in terms of how we're needing to relate and to understand, appreciate each other. So, okay, so you're ready to start your business. What made you start your business? Why did you decide to do that?
There were so many things that were happening during that time. They seemed to all coalesce at once. So I had been working in the restaurant industry for many years, and I needed a break from that work for a number of different reasons. Mostly, and I share this story because I think it's important, is I was working within a company and I wanted to show more diversity within our advertising. And as I was presenting this new strategy, I got a lot of pushback on, well, why are we doing this? Why do people in the photos have tattoos? And why do they look like this? And I said, do you not serve people with tattoos? Like your restaurants are in Texas. Are we not talking to a diverse group of people? And that having to fight that fight was exhausting. Yeah. And I remember having to go home that night after this board meeting and pull statistics after statistics from different states. And I said, why do I have to prove this?
Right.
And I don't want to do this anymore. So I took a break and started working in finance, where I met you at LPL, and I sat in social media for about a year, and that's all I did. And it was fantastic. It wasn't a leadership role at all. I just came in and did my work, and I learned and I studied all about social and how it worked and the strategy behind social, which is really important. And then I started to take on more digital communications roles within the organization, which was, again, really exciting. And I enjoy working with people and leading teams of people. But also during this time, I started volunteering for an organization called Outdoor Afro. And it's a national not-for-profit that creates, inspires Black connections and leadership within nature. And I remember sitting at LPL, and I was, scrolling through Facebook, and I saw Outdoor Afro was looking for leaders in Charlotte. And I was like, oh, well, I could do that. I love going outdoors, and I love nature, and I love people, and I love to bring people together. And so I could do this. So I did. I applied, and to this day, I say it was the most rigorous application like I've ever been through. I mean, for a nonprofit volunteer position, there was background check, there were actual reference check, there was social media check, there were written interviews, there were Skype interviews, there was all sorts of stuff. And it was a real big moment for me to do something that I loved, and I thought I was just going to be a volunteer. And then I was chosen to go on this kind of life-shifting trip to the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge.
Yeah, yeah. That was such a big moment. And I know we have a little bit of video here that chronicles your experience.
Yanira Castro. I am the outdoor Afro leader for Charlotte, North Carolina. Almost exactly a year ago, I started this journey with my family towards a simpler life. Things seemed a little crazy and a little stressed, and this disease of being busy. I'm so busy, I don't have time to eat together as a family. I'm so busy, I don't have time to visit with friends or to think or to just be by myself, and decided to work on that over the past year, which meant figuring out what was important. What I've noticed, this journey of living more simply, is that with all the modern technology and all the things that we've done, is that we're not doing it better. With Outdoor Afro, what I find is that I have the opportunity to take people away from that stress and take them outside and have them realize that breathing clean air and walking in the woods gives them a sense of peace and calm that they don't usually get in their everyday life. And the understanding that while this is the outdoors and this is public land, so is the neighborhood park. So is the patch of grass across the street. We don't all have to come to the refuge. Not all of us are ever going to come to the refuge, but to understand that there's a connection here, along with a connection to your park down the street. And to me, that's a critical piece. I never want my children to feel like they don't belong anywhere.
That was such a big moment. I remember when you made the application for Outdoor Afro, and then you went to the training, and then while you were there, I guess there was a contest or something, and you applied you won the opportunity to then go on this big trip. And then you came back to work and you were putting everything together, and we were, so excited. So take us in. You took that trip, and how did that sort of culminate with or lead to this path you took in terms of starting your own business?
Yeah, so after I came back, well, part of my role after coming back was to write about the experience and share the experience, and to talk to people about protecting the refuge and the importance of it, and go to Capitol Hill and talk to folks about why we should keep oil drilling out of here and the beauty of it, because not everybody's ever going to go. Most people are never going to go there, and to make a connection to the Arctic. And after I did that, Rue, Matt, the CEO and founder of Outdoor Afro, was like, "Hey, you're really good at this. Like, what do you do actually?" And I said, "Well, this is kind of what I do for a living. In communications." And she said, "Hey, I need to load off the social media for Outdoor Afro. I can't do it anymore. I have too many other things I have to do." She said, "Will you come on board as a consultant and do this for us?" And I said, absolutely. And so, I said, if I'm going to do this, we also need to redo your website. I think we can make it sing better. We can connect it better. And so she said, absolutely, go do whatever you think is right. I'm with it. Let's do it. And so here I am working on the Outdoor Afro, in the evening and on the weekends. And I was just having so much fun. Mm-hmm. And I was having so much more fun doing that work than my day job. Yeah. And I thought, well, maybe in, a few years I can, start my own business. And I had like this 5-year plan in my head. I remember telling my friend Delora, and I said, okay, I think I got 5 years left here, 5 years. And what I learned through, Lisa, what you taught me is about my strengths. And the reason I wasn't thriving at LPL was because of the workflow, of the process, of everything you have to do when you're a part of a large organization. And I'm not a process person. I have an idea, I want to go, I want to do it, and Rue allowed me the trust and the freedom to do what I needed to do with Outdoor Afro, to make it, to reach more people and to have people have a better digital experience with Outdoor Afro. And so I started doing that, and then my grandmother died. Mm-hmm. And when my grandmother died, I was leaving to go visit her. To go after she had passed away, to go help take care of the funeral with my mother. And I had just been named 40 Under 40, there was the award ceremony the night before I was leaving. And when I got there and I was with my mom and my sister, I just realized that, I don't know how much time we have left, right? I don't know how much time my mother has left, my father has left, and time is the only resource that we can't get more of. I can't buy more time. It is the most precious commodity that I feel like I have. And I remember I came back and I went to your office, Lisa, and I sat down and I said, I'm done. And you looked at me and you were like, oh, you're like serious. I'm like, yeah, I'm putting my notice in a couple days. And when I had come back from Vegas and I sat down with my husband and I said, I don't think I can do this anymore. I need to do something more with my life that has some more meaning to me. And he has my back 100% all the time. And that's how I started what was then Castro Consulting. And I tell entrepreneurs this all the time is that don't get stuck on your name, right? Because that can put you in like this spin of never actually doing the thing. And I honestly didn't know what this company was going to be when I grew up. I didn't know it was going to be a company. I thought I would consult and make some money and just, hop around and have a good time and stuff. I didn't know this was going to be what it is today. And I'm grateful for that. But I tell entrepreneurs not to be so prescriptive. And if you're ready to take the leap, just do it. And you can change the name later like I did.
Yeah, totally. Well, that's interesting that you say that. I just did a blog about that a few weeks back, talking to an entrepreneur who was stuck and was waiting for 5 months and hasn't done any work because she's trying to come up with the perfect name. It's like, girl, get the name, get a name. Let's go, and then we can change it with paperwork later, as that makes sense. Okay, so the thing that I remember that I want to just call out in this journey was when you came back from that trip, you were different, and you were broader, you were bigger in a way that is really hard to describe. I kind of liken it to when expatriates go on to take an assignment abroad and then they come back and they try to assume the role they had. It doesn't work because you have changed and grown in ways that you can't measure and or sometimes describe. And so you can't operate back in that space. And I just felt that difference. I felt your expanse. I felt the growth. And so even though that day you popped down in my office, I was shocked and a little bit nervous. I was like, okay, now let's talk about this now. Wait a minute. You know what I mean? But you were resolute, you were clear, and look at you. It has been just amazing to watch you flourish and grow. So what? And audience, I'm going to be coming to you in just a moment to get your questions, but I want to get one more in here. What do you now understand about the importance of using digital communications that most of us don't?
So I think one of the things that I find are most important is that the importance of consistency. Right. And for organizations or people who have their own brands is consistency across all of your channels and making sure that you're showing up, that your digital profile is showing up in all the ways that you would show up yourself in person. Mm-hmm. And there's lots of tentacles to that, right? Not only social, there's websites, there's media, there's blogs that you may be on, there's radio interviews that you may be doing that will stay out there forever. So understanding the consistency is really important. And also, I think especially in this time, and I talk about this a lot with young people, is that social media and digital is not inherently a bad thing. Right? We hear a lot of, oh, I'm going to take a break from social. I can't do it anymore. I need to get away from it. And I get that there is an addictive piece of it. And if anybody's seen the social network, it is created to make you an addict to that technology. But you have to use it for good. People have connected with family members, have launched organizations. Black Lives Matter started on social, and now look, kind of look what it's done. Then there was energy and strategy behind all of that. It wasn't just a hashtag. It was a movement that was created there. People have found organ donors, and they connect with friends, and there's all sorts of good ways about that. So I think that's important to remember that the force for good with that. And the last thing I want to talk about, mention a little bit, is how you can use digital during COVID to shift and pivot your business model if you need to. My sister is a well-renowned speaker, and she said, I'm not gonna have any speaking engagements. I'm not gonna be able to go anywhere. Nobody's gonna invite me places. And I said, just hold tight. People are gonna make the shift, and you will be invited to speak again. You just won't have to get in a plane anymore.
Right.
And it took about 8 weeks, 12 weeks for people to go, okay, let me move my event online.
Yep.
Let me bring speakers in, and let's figure out Zoom and Skype and whatever else we need, right? So you have to figure out how to make that pivot. And at Humanity, we were able not only to stay steadfast in the work that we did. We did lose some clients, but because we had a diverse portfolio, right? I wasn't working all with retail or all with nonprofits, right? We had a diverse portfolio, which is important. We lost some, we gained some, but then since we took our expertise within the folks that I work with, and we said, okay, how do we do virtual events? How can we do recordings like this? How do we give people experiences online that we can hit curate and produce for them? And that's what we've done, and it's been a really great success.
Yeah, that's terrific, and a great call out, because we have made the pivot. And I think there are gonna be some lasting effects in terms of how our lives have changed as a result of this pivot. We've got a question in from DeLauren. She says, in what areas have you grown most as an individual since COVID?
Oh, that's a great question, DeLauren. I think where I have grown most is in my patience for my family. I traveled quite a bit. My husband holds it down at home while I'm, working with clients and traveling to different events, and understanding that if the kids come in and come sit and hop in my Zoom call like that, I welcome that it's fine. There are different ways that you can engage not only with your family, but with your friends. And how to figure out how to do that. So I hope I've grown in more of my patience and my understanding of the needs of my family, which sometimes, to be honest, I didn't have to deal with because my husband dealt with it.
Right. Yeah. No, it's true. And I think, I see that every day. In fact, I lived it today. I was on a call, and Lindsay came in because she was trying to do something, and she doesn't usually interrupt. So I knew she was interrupting. She really needed me. And I put it on pause to help her. And I think that's such a great call out. So we got another question. What is your vision for the next level of growth for your company?
I don't know. Somebody tell me. I don't know. Well, I have a better vision now. When I first started, as I mentioned, I was going to, do some consulting and be able to kind of, just kind of bounce around and do what I wanted to. And then referrals started coming. We were doing good work. I was doing good work solo, and then referrals started coming. So I needed more people. And I said, well, we'll just kind of do, have a few clients and make it easy. And there has been this level of growth that I didn't come to expect. And so my vision now at the moment, the team has grown and continues to grow, which I'm really grateful for, especially during a time when I'm very aware that people have lost a lot of work and people are out of work, and there are jobs not to be had. So I think right now, what I'm trying to get to is a little bit more consistency of how my time is spent. And so that's my vision for my next level of growth, is not to work 15 hours a day, right? And so that means hiring more people or saying no to things and starting to level out. And I don't need to do it all myself. At 25, I thought I needed to do everything myself. At 42, I don't want to do everything myself. And there are people who can do things much better than me. And I welcome that every day.
Right. Well, and two, it's like you're hitting that space where that tension shows up as an entrepreneur, where you need help because you do have so much business coming in, and yet there's a cost to that. So where and how do you find the balance of making the next leap in terms of more help and taking some things off of your plate in that way? And I know you've been able to do that. So it sounds like there's room to continue to expand, and that's tremendous.
Yeah, it is, and I think it's important to also go get help. I didn't figure that piece out by myself. I went out and I consulted with an HR strategist to interview the people that I worked with, to look at my contracts, to understand how many hours I was working, to understand the gaps within the company, to understand who was doing what and who could be trained to do more. And so go out and get that help if you need it. There are people out there that will analyze your business and invest in those things. It's important to invest in those things so you can be better and see the blind spots. Somebody uncover the blind spots that you have.
Yeah, no, that's such good advice. That's such good advice. You really do have to continue to make that investment in your business to have it grow. And in so doing, I think you start to achieve some of the family life I know that you enjoy. Let me ask this question, because as we're talking about business, I know that you have a very specialized lens on the kinds of clients that you work with. But one of the core things that is always there is this issue of justice. So why is that so central to your work?
It's funny because I grew up in the restaurant world, right? That's where I kind of grew up most of my career. And I thought that's kind of what I would do. I always obviously had a passion towards justice and identity and those things, but those were more personal things that I did on my own time, and studying I did on my own time. And something, again, my sister really did. Like, that was her lane all the time, her lane, right? And she was, 18. And after Outdoor Afro, I will say this kind of the way you said it, is that the justice related work started to kind of find me as well, because I entered that world of maybe equality or ensuring that there was justice in all its forms. So, now the majority of the clients are social justice, racial justice, economic justice. Working with a new client now on health justice, gender justice, environmental and climate justice. I mean, it just feels good, and it reminds me of passion and purpose. And putting those things together, passion. People talk a lot about passion, right? You go to any kind of graduation ceremony, and they're always telling you, find your passion, right? Do what you're passionate about and get paid for it. And passion is fantastic. We all want to have passion. And passion, for me, is about emotion and motivation. It's what makes us feel good on the inside. That do what you love thing. But purpose is the reason that we do what we do, and it's usually primarily for others. Do what contributes something to society. Where passion can be all over the place, right? I'm passionate about nature. I'm passionate about food. I'm passionate about, all sorts of things. Purpose tends to be more focused. And purpose tends to be longer term, right? A passion, I can love something one day and not love it another day, right? But purpose is something that stays with you.
Yeah.
And they're outwardly focused, so you have greater impact on your others and your surroundings. So that's the purpose for me, is not only working with these organizations, but working with incredible women in these organizations and on my team.
Yeah. And I mean, and just as you're talking, I'm hearing all of that connectivity that you talked about in that video of you out there in the Arctic. It's, just in terms of sort of our connection to the earth and each other. And so that's great. That's great. So one of the things that I have admired and have always appreciated is that you have a powerful way of balancing family and work. And I know that COVID, just as we're swapping stories here, COVID has taken that to a new level sometimes in terms of how we're balancing. But how do you do it? Share a little bit about your approach and philosophy.
So I have an incredible family, and I can't say it enough because people don't really see the people behind the scenes. My husband is my biggest cheerleader, and there's no way I could be who I am and do what I do without him. And so I don't really believe in balance, Lisa.
Okay.
I think balance is, right, if I'm 100%, then balance is me being 20% mother, 20% wife, 20% friend, 20% colleague, 20% entrepreneur all the time. So I'm never hitting on all levels if I have balance in my life. I do really think about harmony, because sometimes I am 100% that day an entrepreneur and I have to pour into my work all day, and I'm a terrible mother that day, right? I'm a terrible mother because I don't engage with my kids because I'm 100% over here right now. Sometimes, I have to take that away and be 100% focused on my family, or 80% on the family and 20% out at work, right? So I think what I strive to achieve is harmony. And I always liken it to like jazz or hip hop. Like jazz is very chaotic, right? And there's all these things happening all the time, right? But there still is some harmony within the jazz, right? And other times, I feel like life is almost like hip hop, right? It's like it's got a steady beat and things are drumming along, and it feels really good, right? And so I love the idea of harmony. We have 4 kids, ages 8 through 24. We have a granddaughter. We don't send our kids to public school, and that's a choice we made when they were young for lots of different reasons. So you saw some photos there where we world school, we traveled with them as I was working. And that was kind of when I started the business, where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna take a few clients and go work in Europe. And we went to Iceland and Germany and France and Italy, and all of those things that I find important for kids, if you can do it, is that exposure to them. But I think it is a blessing and also a big privilege that I have to be able to do that. And I'm grateful not only for my family, but for the people in my life that allow those things to happen.
Yeah, no, I'm in my next term, my next life, I'm coming back as one of your kids.
That's what everybody says.
4 punches that I'm trying to get on board with. I gotta catch up.
Everybody's like, you need another kid? You want a nanny?
You want another kid? I'm coming over. That's it. And here's the thing. I want to push on this for just a second and really get your last reflection as we prepare to close. But when you talked about balance, like I love the idea that, you're not all things at once, and that there are different ways in which you're going to show up on a particular day. But I would also argue that when on that day, when you're 100% entrepreneur and your kids don't get to engage you that day, that's a day that you actually model to them of what it looks like to fully go for your dream. So they need that too. Now you can make mac and cheese tomorrow and they're fine. You know what I mean? They no meals have been missed because daddy got it. But on that day, they got to see you full tilt. And there is value. We know what representation looks like, but they get representation at home in terms of seeing what it looks like to fully go for what it is you want, and to be fully engaged in it in full tilt. And you have to share that piece of it with them. And I think that's a value too. So that's a little piece of philosophy on that piece of it.
I love Alisa-ism. So let's keep going, Lisa. There's so many things that you've told me over the years that have kept me going. So thank you.
Well, I you know what? I'm watching you and I'm inspired by you. So I love that we're on the journey together. One of the questions we always ask as we close out Blazing Your Path is your secret on an integrated life. So what is your secret on an integrated life?
Oh, people. The right people in my surrounding yourself with the right people is so incredibly critical to growing, to becoming fully who you are. There were years where I was around people that ain't really like all that much, and I don't know why I was hanging out with them. And my team that you're seeing on the screen, Ina and Tiffany and Tony, and Oprah. Oprah's part of my team. She's part of my crew. And Lysandra, who you don't see here, are part of the Humanity Communications Collective family that continues to grow. My clients, Rue Map, who I called her my fire starter. I think I would have got here eventually, but she fanned my flame. She believed in me. She refers me. She recommends me. I can trace back a good percentage of clients to my working with her. And so the clients, Beth Pratt of the National Wildlife Federation, these people who have trusted me with their brand, with their company, with their projects. My family, my sister, who I've mentioned, Rosa Clemente, is a force in my life. Her and my brother, Willie Clemente, we are all entrepreneurs. I was the one that was late to the party. I came in the latest. They were always entrepreneurs. My mother and my father, who migrated from Puerto Rico and with, like many people from other countries with not a lot in their pocket and build up, businesses and companies in order to show us, right, to model for us that you can be your own boss.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for me, the friends that are in my life every day, our text chain, our text group of friends, who a lot are watching right now, like how we lean on each other, how we push each other, how we challenge each other, right? So go and find people who are going to not only yes you to death, but also question you and challenge you to be better.
Yeah.
And sometimes those people don't always fall in your lap.
Yeah.
You have to go out and find them. And as we get older, it's harder to make new relationships. But my most formative relationships outside of, a couple of my best friends, Nyla and Marissa and Dana, are ones I formed in my late 30s and 40s. And so when we start to know ourselves better and are okay with being flawed in front of others.
Yeah, no, and I see that. I know I said that was the last question, but I saw one pop in from Terrence, who is the awesome videographer in town. If you don't know Terrence Murray and you need video production, this is your guy. But he asked here, and I thought it important to pull this up because he's an entrepreneur as well. You mentioned you lost some clients when everything shifted. Was that because they were unable to transition to the digital space? How do you help clients better understand the power of the digital workspace?
Hey, Terrence. So the first question is, the clients that I lost were retail-based. They were restaurants. And restaurants, I mean, we all know they were kind of the first to close and the last to open. So for them, it became more of a cash flow situation and being able to afford. And I've been working with this restaurant for about 3 years. And so that was the case with them. And I would hop in and help them. And I'm still connected with them today as they start to open. And so that was where I lost clients in that space. And how to make people understand the importance of digital is I always really try to relate it back to them as individuals, right? How do you find places to go eat at? How do you connect with your family? How do you get your news, right? Where do you post your photos, right? And then relate it to them as a person and then work on talking about how it can work for their organization.
Oh, that's so good. Okay, I'm glad we got that in because those are some great nuggets in there just in terms of sort of how to make the connection. And as you're saying it, I'm making the connection. I'm like, oh yes, how do I? Okay, that was good. I'm there you go. Janita, you are amazing. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for being here. It was such a great discussion, and thank you so much. Thank you to the audience for joining us. I appreciate it. I'm Dr. Lisa Toppin. You've been listening to Yanira Castro and my guest on Blazing Your Path. We wish you a wonderful night. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.